Our mini human is 10 going on 32, and she has completely outgrown her playroom. It has quickly become a place for her to just store all the things, trash, food, junk, you name it. So I have partnered up with Home Depot to flip this thing from the ground up, starting with their LifeProof Sheet Vinyl flooring. And I'm going to show you how I did all of this by myself in 8 days. 6 years ago, I cannot believe I just said that out loud, but 6 years ago when I first redid this playroom and I put carpet in, I quickly learned it was a mistake. Ever since then, it's gained new textures, new colors, and new smells, which is just out of control. Not to mention, the people that installed it didn't do a very good job because it bubbled like instantly when we got it, but I've always been too lazy to replace it. Before making the switch to LifeProof, I decided to demo these built-ins, and I know people are going to be upset with me, but she literally didn't touch anything in these drawers for 3 years' time. So I took all of the toys out and just decided to organize them by donations, what we're keeping, like in storage, or what she just wants to keep for herself to play with. Cleaning everything out took me roughly 3 hours, and I just dedicated day one to a clean out and demo. Demo is fun, but it's full of surprises. Oh my god, I forgot that it used to be this blue. Oh, so nasty. There really is no rhyme or reason to how I demo, but I actually do organize all the pieces by size and keep it really clean instead of just a big pile of debris, because that's going to make it easier for me to move downstairs to our dumpster. That's not what I want to do. Oh, Rachel. Yeah, I always seem to do that during demo, but I'll show you how to patch that later. You guys ready for this? This whole room used to be a C-seam, but I could never see this before. Yeah, they must have painted the back seam, the backdrop, and then put this in, which to me is just like the absolute most funny thing. Ew, and if this is rat poop, I'm gonna freak out. Stop hurting the walls more than what we already are. I'm so excited this is out. Now she's gonna have so much more room. By demoing that out, like I said, it's gonna give her more room, but it will also make it so it's so much easier to transition this room when she doesn't want it to be an office or a playroom or whatever it is that she's feeling. I'll be able to transform the space with ease because it's not gonna have like a giant, no, this has to be an office. When you are installing sheet vinyl, you want to ensure that the floor you are putting it on is completely level. So I needed to remove these nails and staples, and I found the easiest way to do that was just rubbing a hammer back and forth until they easily came out, and then I swept everything up. That's all in a day's work. My dumpster should be coming today, but it didn't, so that's why I didn't do the whole room. I want to keep the mess contained as much as possible. That helps me stay sane. But all of this is me. You're going to see the whole process. It's me solo, guys, and you guys can do it too. If I can do it and not die, you can do it and also not die. So, oh boy. Day 2 consisted of just getting all this junk out, but oh, don't worry, this is on the second floor, so I had a bunch of trips up and down the stairs throughout the day, and then I had to move things to the dumpster, but just point blank, it's clearing out this room in its entirety and getting all the nails and the staples out of the floor. That phase is definitely physically exhausting, but it actually didn't take that long. So I moved back up to the walls with some paint and patch and just spackled in all of the holes from decor to demo to the ones that I made, just to get the walls ready, because that needs to dry for me to kind of texture over a little bit before I decide to paint. Yes, I'm in a different outfit, but it is actually still the same day. I just went ahead and worked out in between, which sounds aggressive, but I don't know about you. I work out every single day in order to do projects like this. And that has nothing to do with this, but I just wanted to clarify because I wanted to give you guys like the real days and real times of how I'm doing this. Now, I don't fix holes how everybody else does. I actually use Fast Set 5, some wall texture, a sponge, fiber tape, some spatulas, scissors, and a throwaway cup. I line the hole with the tape both ways first, and the reason that I actually do it this way is because I make a lot of holes in my walls, so it's just nice to have all this on hand all the time. I run over it with my spatula and the Fast Set 5 that you mix with equal parts water, and then I just smooth it out to the best of my ability. Once it's all dry, I go in and sand it down. You'll see it's about to get wet again because I realized there's a divot. So I just repeated the process and sanded it down till smooth. And then I went in with my wall texture, just sprayed it lightly across where I added the Fast Set 5. Took my giant sponge and damped it a little bit and just kind of flattened the texture to the wall to match the texture of the room. Holes in walls are handled, so I just went ahead and moved back to the floor and went in with my screwdriver to level out any screws that were sticking up, and then I even went in with my belt sander where things were a little bit bumpy and smoothed that out as well. I swept and vacuumed until all of the debris that I could possibly get was gone, and then I realized that I needed to add some molding from where those built-ins were, so I went to Home Depot and picked up a couple of things to do that.
Is it true, babe, every time you gotta look at the new tools, you gotta approve? What, you don't like this one? But why don't you like it? Are we done? Are we done?
Now that we have that out of the way, you want to trim the molding down to size and then just ensure that it fits. Go in with some Loctite or Power Grab, put that on the back of the molding and press it up against the wall until it fits nice and snug, and then just secure that with your nail gun. I switched out to white caulk, that's for the baseboards and trim, and went ahead and just put that in the seam and used this cool little tool thing that I picked up, which made my life a lot easier and just made sure it was nice and smooth. But now we're gonna move on to painting the room. Moving on to day 3, it was all things paint, because this is actually the most tedious part for me. I just taped and tarped anything off I didn't want to get paint on, and then I rolled out the ceiling in just a ceiling flat white. But then for the walls, I actually switched to a sprayer this time around, and it helped me move a little bit quicker than normal, because like I said, painting is just not my forte for whatever reason. Even though you're not asking for this little bit of information, like I said, I've never used a paint sprayer before, and I just honestly encourage you, no matter what tool it is, big or small. I mean, this guy compared to the power tools that I use isn't that scary, but it intimidated me so much. I did feel so good though when I stepped back and looked at the room and was like, oh my gosh, we totally just did that with a new tool, which is so rad. To finish up day 3, I removed all the tape, all the tarp, all the things, and looked at what kind of touch-ups and cleanups I needed to do. And I wanted to share this portion with you because this is the reality of when I paint what happens.
For some reason, hot pink dots are seeping through. I don't know why I thought I needed to tape on this side of the door because I was painting it, but now I need to go back and paint that. Ceiling color is coming through in here, so I need to go back and just do like a clean sweep. So this has never been painted. This is blue from the original owner, so I want to come back in here with a brush and kind of clean up all this gunkiness. So definitely did that, which is fun. Gotta clean that off.
Touch up and clean up done. I swept and vacuumed the floor once again, all in preparation for day 4, which is creating our template for the LifeProof Sheet Vinyl. I grabbed my knee pads, a tarp, painter's tape, and utility knife, and I went into the room and just laid it out flat and started cutting around the edges, taping the pieces together if necessary. And the reason I'm doing this is because the big roll of vinyl is extremely heavy, and it's actually downstairs, and I have a lot of open space downstairs. That being said, I'll be able to just grab the paper, walk it down with ease, roll out the vinyl without it having to like crumple up on the walls, and just cut it without having to get all crazy. I tend to leave all of this out and try to make the transformation seem super easy, but in this instance, I really wanted to showcase how I legitimately do everything solo. So I'm moving this 12-foot wide roll through my house to my kitchen to maneuver it to a place where I can actually lay the entire thing out without having to, like I said before, have the edges folded up and being weird.
It's really gorgeous, actually.
This is the star of the show, and I decided to go with the aged birch wood color finish. It has a super thick cushion comfort backing for additional comfort underfoot and sound reduction within the room. And it also has a urethane stain shield for ultimate stain, scuff, and scratch resistance, making it super easy to maintain. I've actually never installed any type of flooring before, to be completely honest, so I'm glad Callie's just as confused as I am. I would feel bad if I took credit for this whole template tip. I actually got this tip from a local Home Depot employee who just happened to do vinyl sheet flooring and felt really confident, so I was not tripping after he gave me these pieces of advice. I trimmed off the excess with the same utility knife that we cut this tarp with. You just want to make sure that you have a new blade. Discard the template and roll that vinyl sheet up and bring it to the room of install. Once I got this in the room, I laid it flat as possible, and then I lined up the back corner of the room to the back corner of the sheet, the place that I didn't cut essentially, because I know that's a 90-degree angle. And then I went ahead and just used that same utility knife and cut off closer to the edges where I left excess. With this whole process, I would just have patience. Slow and steady is gonna win the race, because when I tried to rush or I thought that I was doing it right, I ended up cutting off a little bit too much in some areas. When working my way around corners, I would just make a couple of slits around that little angle and then kind of push the vinyl into place, because it is very flexible, but you don't want to push too hard because you will rip it. I continued that process until I did every single wall. I made it as perfect as I possibly could, but the thing about this, when you lay the vinyl in the room, it needs to rest at room temperature prior to install 24 to 48 hours. I try to get this done fairly early, like 10 a.m. steez, so that way I can get right back to it the next day and not really miss a beat. That being said, day 5 is all about installing this guy. I'm going to go into more detail as I install this floor with you, but I've listed all these guys down below as well. Not gonna lie, I was super intimidated and stressed.
This can be open in 25 minutes. Working time up to 25 minutes. Oh my gosh. Alright.
First thing that I needed to do was roll this guy up so I can glue it and roll it at the same time versus like lifting it and all this jazz, but for some reason that was difficult for me.
Oh my gosh.
Don't you worry, I did get this rolled up and ready to go to put the adhesive down and get this actually installed. I used a 10-pound weight to hold back the flap that I'm about to install onto the floor, and then I spread my adhesive evenly with my trowel along everywhere that vinyl was going to meet that wood floor. I laid the first flap and I was kind of hesitant to get on my knees and move around to press it firmly into the edges. I didn't do that moving forward because it ended up like indenting part of the vinyl, which it buffered out by itself once it dried, but I just was getting really nervous. I went in with a putty knife and just got all the air bubbles out, smoothing it to the edges, letting the excess come up, wiping it away if necessary, and continued that process till the room was completed. As I always tell you, I am not a professional, but in my hopes of teaching you guys something that I'm doing for the first time, you guys will also in return teach me, because maybe you've done vinyl floors, you know, and you can leave a comment down below and tell the people how different tips and tricks will work out for them. This is just what I did, and this is just because I wanted to see if I was capable of doing it, and I literally felt like such a bad broad while I was installing this floor, because it's just like from the ground up, this room is totally gonna be me. I'm not gonna lie and say that this was easy. It was just challenging because I've never done it before. So there was areas where I was getting super frustrated. You can see where it's kind of wrinkling up, but I didn't really stress about it because I knew I had 45 minutes to work with the adhesive underneath. I finished up this back corner and I put way too much glue this time around. I don't know what I was thinking. But I did want to mention that I know not everybody's going to be doing vinyl sheet flooring to their playroom. The reason that I am putting adhesive over the entire thing is because it's going to endure a lot of traffic versus like a small guest bathroom that you could just actually do the adhesive to the corners and the edges of the room only. When I had this laid down in its entirety, there is a little gap in the back because it is a 12-foot wide roll. My room is 13 feet wide, so I have to DIY that patchy area. You want to go over it either with a vinyl sheet roller, but I love that the Home Depot employee recommended just using a rolling pin as a DIY solution. So I went ahead and did that and got one of the best ab workouts I've ever gotten. The excess wasn't a long strip, it was like a short and chunky strip, so I decided to cut the wood planks out individually and lay them in the spot that kind of best continues the pattern, if you will, or the look of the floor, and just kind of place that where it's empty on that back wall. There was a little lip of the pattern, which was perfect. I decided to just cut that right off and then trim it down the pieces that I cut previously a little bit more to fit perfectly and match up the best that it could. I know this isn't ideal, but this is what I had to do. I repeated the same exact process, laying my adhesive down, placing the vinyl on top, and smoothing out all the air bubbles. I totally forgot to mention that this is day 6. Day 5 was laying down the big piece and letting it dry overnight, and now day 6 is kind of finishing up the vinyl, cleaning up whatever is needed, like if I made some weird cuts, and then adding trim to this room and touching up paint if necessary.
Settled the pieces into the door jamb and look how gorgeous. This is my hardwood floor in my actual like house throughout my house, but what I noticed was there is this molding right here. You can see it's not over here, and that just kind of makes it super crispy and clean. So I am gonna run to Home Depot and grab some of that molding to cover up all my mistakes. Not too shabby at all.
As I just said, I ran to Home Depot, grabbed some trim, I laid it out on the room, started measuring and cutting it down to size on my miter saw, and it instantly cleaned it up. Before nailing the trim into place, I did go in with a seam sealant. I also linked that down below for you, and all the other things that I'm using for this project as well. I let all the things that I touched up, whether it was paint or this molding and trim, and left it overnight once again to dry, and picked up other upgrades on day 7. Another update that I love is swapping out outlets, bad outlets like this one that you see here, or even just upgrading them to a USB outlet since we're charging all the things all the times. If you don't want to swap out the actual outlet itself, you can just change the cover plate and it will give you a fresh new look. I genuinely can't help but just smile right now because it really does look so beautiful. And not only that, it's going to save me so many headaches and heartbreaks because it has a quick clean wear layer that repels dirt and grime. It resists cuts, dents, scrapes, and scratches. And it's moisture proof and mildew resistant, so I'm hoping that means that if Callie decides to pee on this, it's not gonna ruin it like it did the carpet. I filmed this via my Instagram stories, but on day 7, I kind of took a break and let the flooring sit one more day because you don't want to place any heavy furniture items on top of it if it's still wet because it will indent the floor. I decided to focus on building furniture that night, and then the next day, day 8, style it. You might recognize this couch from my office makeover. So some pieces I already had on hand, but this rug, the desk, the shelf, oh my gosh, the woven baskets, and this chalkboard that you're about to see, all of that is from Home Depot, and I've linked it all down below for you guys. I put all of the heavy duty furniture in first, and I left styling like the little bits and pieces, odds and ends, for the very last thing because I didn't want to change my mind and style it and then move the pieces around. But I'm not gonna lie, this is the first time I've placed everything in the room first go, and I fell in love with it. Styling for your mini human or for someone else that you love or even yourself is obviously going to be so different than what I'm doing here. I am incorporating a white room because that is what Heaven requested. I also decided to implement a desk, but a smaller desk, and separate the shelving. That way, if we want to move the room around or we want to try something new, it's not like it had to stay that certain way since the piece couldn't be moved. We have gone from like, this is so embarrassing that I'm even showing this, but we have gone from this hot mess and a half to just a nice, relaxing, bohemian, like minimalistic, I don't even know what kind of style you want to put to this, but I love how just like good and refreshing it feels, because that was crazy. Like I said before, you want to work with your mini human or the person that you're styling for. I talked to Heaven about how she wanted to transition this room, and she gave me a ton of good ideas that I implemented throughout. But the one thing she requested was to leave a lot of floor space because she likes to throw out her gymnastics mat and tumble a bit. So that's why I left everything like to the left of the desk wide open for her.
I mean, I am completely obsessed with the vibe of this room. And you guys are probably like, this is not even a playroom. Well, this, my friends, is for another day. Ay, ay, ay. Do you want to play in this room too? You like playing in this room as well? Oh, that's really sweet.
If you guys want to snag your LifeProof Sheet Vinyl flooring, I've linked it down below for you, and I've also dropped a couple of different like budget facts down below too for the cost of the room, so be sure to check that out. And thank you so much to Home Depot for not only sponsoring today's video, but just transforming this space for our mini human. I'll catch you on the next video for another DIY.